Hi, I'm Elise Winters. I'm a Suzuki violin teacher in Austin, Texas. I'm really excited that you're here with me in this video, and what I want to share with you today is a series of movement building blocks that I created to help teach kind of the posture movements of playing the violin. So many of the things that we do in playing violin are awkward, they're really tough for kids to learn, and there's a bunch of them happening at the same time. And what I've set out to do is kind of separate each of those individual skills and make learning each of those skills really fun, so that when they actually put them all together, they really have that movement vocabulary in their body, and it's comfortable for them and it's natural for them, and it's easier for them to layer all of those individual skills together. How I ended up creating these activities is that I was actually teaching a group class in an elementary school around the corner from me. It was during the school day, so the parents weren't in attendance, although sometimes I might have one or two parents drop in. But mostly it was just me and these 12 students. And as you can probably guess, it's really impossible to do individual posture correction on 12 students, because by the time you get to student number 12, students numbers 1 through 11 have wiggled themselves out of the posture that you just carefully got them into. And then you go back through the students that wiggled themselves out, and then the other students are back in some funny posture. And so getting all of the students at the same time into a posture just really was literally not possible. On top of that, what I found was the students really struggled to find that posture again in their body. So even if I could get them into that correct posture and get them looking good, they weren't able to necessarily find that posture for themselves again. And so what I saw was they really didn't have the prerequisite physical awareness, the prerequisite kind of movement vocabulary to where I could ask them to do that particular movement and they were able to successfully do that, even if it was a fairly, what I would have thought was a fairly limited movement. So without further ado, let's do some songs. I have a little eraser here, and for almost all of these songs I'm going to have some kind of physical object that is marking which hand is the student's bow hand. Now, most of the time as the teacher I'm going to be doing the movements mirror image, so my bow hand will be my left hand, but occasionally there will be a student that actually knows that it's flipped when you're looking at someone, and so for those students I'll do it in the correct way with my actual bow hand. For the purpose of the video, I'll use my left hand as my bow hand. And for each of the songs, I suggest that you go ahead and kind of tap a D on the piano or on your violin so that you're always singing in the same key. D major is a really great key to sing in, and that's helping to establish a little bit of perfect pitch early on, so that they're kind of finding that note every time. So we're going to place that eraser on top of the hand, and we're going to be alternating hands. Hot, cross, buns, hot, cross, buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot, cross, buns. And of course, as teachers, we can keep that eraser very easily on our hands, but for the students, there's two things that are going to be hard. One is the eraser is going to go flying because they're not going to be able to keep their arms level. They'll start to sag. And a lot of the sagging isn't because they're tired, it's just because they don't have a body awareness of where that straight position is. And then the other thing that's going to be a little bit challenging for them is that alternating movement, because that's probably the first time they've done something like that, especially in a beat-oriented way. So that's their first activity. It doesn't take them too much to be able to have some success at that activity, and now they're getting that bow hold movement of opening from the elbow, but we're doing it bilaterally because there's no reason not to do it bilaterally. It feels good to repeat what you're doing on one side of the body in the other side, and that way we're building skills in a balanced way, even though ultimately on violin we're just going to be using that in the right arm. So the next song that we're going to do is one of the few where we might actually have something in both hands because it helps them kind of figure out the correct movement. And what we're going to be doing is a rotation from the shoulder, and that's preparing that movement of playing where your bow arm is actually upside down. Now as professionals, we don't notice that our hand is upside down when we play because we've gotten used to it and we've been doing it for years. But for the students, that rotation is very unfamiliar. And you're going to discover it's going to be very difficult for them to go into that rotational position. And what you're going to look for as you're teaching it is their elbow coming up in the air. Have them look at their elbow, find out where their elbow is. They'll tend to go straight across this way instead of rotating up. So we have our cups in both hands. I call this exercise Pour the Water. I forgot to mention hot cross buns. We call that karate chops. Just some cute little names to help them remember which motions go with each song. Again, I'll get my D on the piano. Ready, sing, let us chase the squirrel up the hickory, down the hickory. Let us chase the squirrel up the hickory tree. If you want to catch him, up a hickory, down a hickory. If you want to catch him, climb you up that tree. Now this song is probably not familiar to you as a teacher, but what you'll find is that a lot of your students will know it. It's a really common general song that they use in the general music classroom. Cute little song, very easy to learn. And any of these songs are actually available with piano accompaniment and the lyrics on the website discoverviolin.org under Book 1. So you can access those songs very freely. Your parents can access those recordings and play along with the recording. The next movement building block, I use this ball. Again, I'll be doing this mirror image. This is my bow hand. And I'm training the crossing of the midline with this activity because crossing the midline is something that's kind of a developmental task for young children. In that 4 to 6 range, they're just beginning to maybe start accomplishing this task developmentally. And when a student twists when they're playing, a lot of what's happening is that they're not used to crossing the midline. When they reach for something, they tend to reach with their whole body. And of course, playing the violin is a crossing the midline activity. Their right arm is going to be over on the left-hand side of their body, and that's really weird. So we're going to train that with this movement building block and help them get that arm on the opposite side. So I'm going to switch to mirror image. I've got my ball on the shoulder, and then what I'm going to have that child do, and we're going to practice this movement before we sing it with the song, as we would do with all of the movements. Ball on the shoulder, show me the ball. Notice my hand is now upside down. I'm in that pronated kind of bowing position. Ball on the shoulder, show me the ball. Getting that flip and getting that wrist bend. And then I'm going to, after they kind of get that movement down, I'm going to get my D on the piano. And this is the song Boil Them Cabbage, which you might be familiar with. Ready, sing, boil them cabbage down, down, bake them whole cakes brown, brown. The only song that I can sing is boil them cabbage down. Possum in a cinnamon tree, raccoon on the ground. Raccoon says, you son of a gun, shake some cinnamons down. All right, so that's Boil Them Cabbage, and we call the name of that activity is Ball Bounces. For the next song, I'm going to get my eraser back. I'm going to put it in my bow hand. What we're training in this next exercise is the rotation. I'll demonstrate in the correct side, the rotation of the violin playing arm. But again, we're going to do a lot of these things bilaterally because why not? And it's very natural to do them bilaterally, even though this is really a left hand skill, a left arm skill. So I'm going to put my eraser in my bow hand, again mirror image, and the name of the song is All My Little Ducklings. It's originally a German song, but it's been translated a long time ago into English and is a pretty common song that they use in the general music classroom. There's a Spanish version of it called Los Pollitos, so even your Spanish students may have sung that. I'm going to get a D on the piano, and I'm going to start in, I call this ladder position. You can come up with your own ways of remembering how to get them into this starting position, how to describe that to them. And we're going to touch our elbows together. It's a little tricky for them sometimes. And then we're going to come back to straight, and then the ducklings are going to flap their wings, and then we're going to come back to straight. Ready, sing, all my little ducklings swim up at me. All my little goslings gather by the pond, gather by the pond, roaming through the grasses, Mama looking on. And this is the first activity that I think you'll really notice there's some fatigue in the arms. They're really starting to work out some of their muscles, build a little bit of strength. You can let them know when they complain about feeling tired. You can let them know that when they feel tired, it means they're getting stronger, and be really excited when they say that. And that kind of transforms that tired experience from a negative, like, oh, I don't like this, into a positive, like, oh, I'm building muscle. That's exciting. All right, and sometimes there's a child who has trouble, or even a parent who has trouble with that twist, and that's that tricep muscle being a little bit tight. So if you have a parent or a child who struggles with that twist, you can do a little tricep exercise. Get that arm over your head and pull your arm toward you. You can do that on the other side. Pull that arm behind your head, and that's stretching out that tricep, and that should kind of give you the ability to twist into that position with a little bit more freedom. And I forgot to mention the name of the ducklings exercise is duck wings, and that's referring to that kind of wings spread position. You can tell them, make sure that you keep your arms high so that your duckling is strong, because otherwise you won't be able to fly. They kind of get a little saggy sometimes on that one because they get tired. Our next exercise is going to be a pinky twist, and this is teaching, of course, the twist of the violin arm. As the teacher, I'm going to do it mirror image. You'll discover this one feels pretty strange mirror image, or at least it does for me. And I'm using the pinky touching my nose as a tactile cue of whether or not my hand is correctly twisted, because they're going to put their hand up like this, but then they're looking at their index finger. So they're going to touch that pinky to their nose, come out to playing position, come back to their nose, and down. So the very first note of this song is going to start in down position. I'm going to get my D, and I'm going to start on this note. Ready, sing. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. And of course you can do the second verse as well. And the other thing that's teaching, as you probably noticed, is turning the head to look at the violin. So we're getting the head and we're getting the rotation of the hand at the same time. The name of the Mary Had a Little Lamb exercise is Pinky Twist, and the next exercise is really building on that same skill. The name of the song is All Around the Buttercup, and what we're assuming at this point is that they can get into that twisted position, and now we're going to work on the actual angle of the wrist. And I used to think that when students had kind of that pancake hand that you're familiar with, that it was because they were resting the violin on the hand, and what I discovered when I really isolated that movement is that that position of the hand, that kind of dropped position, seems to just feel more natural for them, and then finding that straight wrist angle is just not intuitive. So we're really going to work that body awareness and help them find that correct angle. And we're going to do that by finding both of the incorrect angles first and then ending up with that straight wrist. You'll discover that they really start to pay attention to their body in a different way in this exercise. So I've got my eraser in my bow hand. I'm ready to use my violin hand only on this activity. I'm going to get my note, and it's going to start here. Ready, sing. All around the buttercup. 1, 2, 3. If you want a bonny lass, just choose me. All around the clover white. 1, 2, 3. If you want a bonny lad, just choose me. And so that is, the name of that exercise is wrist angle. So the next exercise is to the song Hushabye, or Arroro in Spanish. And this is the first exercise where they're going to actually have a violin experience. You've had experience making box violins probably. Here's my little box violin. I put a little button on the end, a little plastic disc, so that they can touch that when they bring the violin up over their head. And I've got a little tube here for when we do a dowel rod exercise later. That tube is going to help guide their bow into the straight path. So in this next exercise, mostly we're just working on having their head pillowed on the violin, keeping their head there, developing the concentration to stay in that position, and going from rest position into playing position. And this is the first exercise that I do not teach in mirror image. I use the correct side, honestly, because it's just too confusing for me to try to hold a violin on the wrong side and the chin rest is in the wrong place. So I'm going to let them deal with that little mirror image flip at this point, and usually that's pretty fine. So we're going to take the violin here. I'm going to bring it out in front. They're going to put their finger on the button, bring it up over the head, bring it down, turn their head, look at the violin, and they can just hold their hand on the body of the violin, and then we're going to sing the song in that position. Now getting this hand in the correct spot on the violin is actually quite challenging for them, so we have a lobster that's going to bite the bottom of the violin there, and then they're going to bring it out in front. They'll probably try to bite the violin with the other hand, so we have to figure out which hand is which. This is the biting hand. I bring it out in front. I get the button with my finger here, up over my head, bring it down, and that little button that I put there is going to be on the front of my neck, so that helps them find exactly where that violin is going to rest. I'm going to keep the violin here, turn my head, and I'm not going to stay in this position while I sing because it's going to make it very difficult to sing, but the way that the song goes is Aroro mi niño, aroro mi sol, aroro pedazo de mi corazón. Hushaby, my darling, hushaby, my soul, darkness falling round you, in your cradle warm. And I call that exercise Violin Pillow. There are two more exercises that complete my Movement Building Block series, and this one is called Finger Soldiers, and it's to the tune of Yankee Doodle, so you know that song. And what we're doing in this exercise is we're training the kind of squared off shape of the index finger of the left hand. And the reason that that's really important when we play the violin is because if that first finger isn't fairly compact on the violin, then the fourth finger, the pinky, isn't going to be able to reach as far as it needs to, and unless your student is someone who has extremely long fingers, that's going to be a real problem for using the fourth finger. So we want to get a really compact shape in the first finger, but then we also want to have a nice extension in fingers 2, 3, and 4. And so in a certain way, you could say that the fingers of the hand are doing very opposite things. You're compacting the first finger and you're extending the other. So that's one of the two things that we're practicing in the Yankee Doodle exercise. The other thing that we're practicing in that exercise is we're getting the base knuckle of the first finger to be flat. So in other words, we're lining up the bottom joint of the finger with the bone of the hand, and we're lining up the bone of the hand with the bones of the arm. So we've got a straight line all the way up from the second joint of the finger all the way down to the elbow. And that, of course, is going to give them really great violin posture, and then we've got the compacted first finger, and that's really the core of the left hand setup for the violin. So how we're doing this is an activity we're going to do bilaterally. It gives them a little bit more control on both sides. We're really just building kind of body awareness and position awareness in their fingers. They've certainly never done an activity like this. We're going to ask them to square off all 4 of their fingers and make sure that their knuckles are flat. They'll have their fingers in, as soon as you square off this end part of their fingers, what they're going to want to do is go into a fist with that knuckle kind of in a right angle. So we're asking them to do something very strange, which is keep those knuckles flat. We're doing it with all 4 fingers so that they can kind of keep that idea, that concept really simple at the beginning. And we're just going to open and close and open and close, and they're going to be checking the flatness of the back of their hand the whole time they're doing this exercise. We're going to start with one hand only. They're not going to be able to do it correctly with both hands, so we're just going to focus on one hand at a time, and we're going to do it eventually with the other hand as well. Now on the refrain of the song, we're going to do a different activity. This is where we're practicing the differentiated movement between the first finger and the other fingers. I'm going to square off, compact my first finger. I'm going to really freely wiggle the remaining fingers, and you can kind of wiggle those fingers and, you know, kind of chase your student, pretend that the legs, the fingers are like the legs of a bug or something, and they have fun with that. So let's see how it fits together with the song Yankee Doodle. I'm going to do this one step higher just because it goes a little lower in range. Ready, sing, Yankee Doodle went to town, riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni. Square the first finger, wiggle the other ones. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy, mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Father and I went down to camp, along with Captain Gooding, and there we saw the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee, and we get the idea. So we're going to wiggle the fingers on the refrain. So that is called Finger Soldiers, kind of goes with the theme of Yankee Doodle. The last movement building block that we're going to do in this video is to the tune of Skip to My Lou, and we're using this tune to practice the correct and the incorrect motion of the bow arm. That sounds funny, so let me tell you what I mean. Of course, the correct motion, I'm going to do this mirror image, is this one where we're opening from the elbow, and the incorrect motion is where they're opening from the shoulder. And the reason that we're doing it, practicing it both correctly and incorrectly, is that practicing it the wrong way and being able to alternate doing it the right way and doing it the wrong way allows the child to really differentiate the difference between those two movements and practice that difference. And if they can fluently go from the right way to the wrong way, then that means that they can also fluently go from the wrong way to the right way, which is the thing that we want them to be able to do when they're playing. Because when they're playing the violin, they still probably will, even though they've done the movement building blocks, they'll probably go back here sometimes. And so we want to have that ability to switch gears and then begin opening from the elbow. So we're training the ability to switch, and we're also training them to observe which one is which. And we'll talk about this is the correct way of moving and this is the wrong way of moving, so they know that what they're practicing is the right way and the wrong way, and we'll demonstrate that on the violin so that they can hear the sound that the wrong way makes and that the right way is superior and gives them a better result. So this is to the tune of Skip to My Lou. I call the activity Bows and Bumps. We're only going to do it with one side because we want them to start figuring out which side is the bow side. I will do the activity mirror image. I'm going to find my D, and I'm going to start on this note. Get your bow arm ready. Skip, skip, skip to my Lou. Skip, skip, skip to my Lou. Skip, skip, skip to my Lou. Skip to my Lou, my darling. Swing your partner, skip to my Lou. Swing your partner, skip to my Lou. And we get the idea, and you can do as many verses as you want to. This is a great activity to come back to once they actually are on the violin and they are playing, and maybe they start to do a little bit of the movement from the shoulder, and we can review that activity, and then we can find it, the corollary of that on the violin. I've been doing these movement building blocks for several years now, and I see a really huge difference between my students from before and my young beginners now. And what I see is there's a tremendous increase in their level of body awareness when they finally get that violin on their shoulder. They're very attuned to the angles of their movement. They're attuned to very fine details in their own posture. They realize they can't see their own body that well, but they're really thinking about it, and they're very receptive to feedback from me, feedback from their parents. And they really value and care about their correct positioning because we've already been working on it for a while before we get the violin on their shoulder. Some young beginners go through the whole sequence extremely fast. Some take a little longer, maybe because there's not as much physical strength, maybe there's not as much coordination or body awareness. But regardless of where the student is on that spectrum, I see a difference in all of them when they start playing on the violin. They have a level of refinement that is really new in my studio and super exciting for a teacher to see. So this is a part of my violin curriculum, they have to earn their violin by graduating these 9 movement building blocks. And I let the parents know that, but when they enroll in my studio, don't go get a violin, because there's a whole process here, and I'll tell you more about that. And what that means is when the child does finally graduate each of these activities, and they have a chart and they get stars, each time they graduate one they get a star. When they finally do get that violin, it's so exciting for them because they've earned that violin through their own hard work. They're very invested at that point in the process of working. They're really seeing a tangible benefit for all that hard work they've put in, and getting the violin is so exciting. The first thing that they want to do is learn how to play all of those songs that they've been singing and moving to. So they're invested at that point in learning and working and beginning to make music. I use these movement activities in individual lessons, but they're also great for group class. I actually have a number of additional games that I didn't go into here because they're not part of my core sequence that are great for crossing the midline kinds of activities, establishing finger independence, whole body coordination, and a few other things, some bow activities. Of course, all of these are set to music, and all of the songs are really nice to play on the violin. So not only are they getting the movement activities, but they're also getting some repertoire choices. So you will find on the download that is below this video, you'll find the graduation sheet where they can get stars on each of their movement building blocks, and full descriptions of each of these activities, plus some more activities that we didn't go into here. I'm really passionate about teaching young beginners, and part of that is because it's so fun, and they're so creative and beautiful and spontaneous and constantly challenging, and I get to stay a child at heart when I teach them, and it's one of my most favorite things to do. The other part of why I'm passionate about teaching young children is actually, I think, because it was a huge struggle for me in the beginning when I started teaching. I took the Suzuki Book 1 training, and I had really fantastic mentors, and in spite of that, I reached a really stuck spot where I questioned my ability as a teacher and almost left the profession. And one moment really crystallizes that for me, which is a young beginner that I had. She was about 5. She was on Twinkle for 6 or 7 months, and I was at my wit's end. I didn't know how to get us moving forward. She was bored, her mom was bored, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to provide the experience for her that I wanted. And I almost left teaching, and in deciding to continue teaching, I really made a commitment to myself that I was going to find a way that worked better for me and find ideas that allowed that process to be exciting and inspiring and fun and engaging, and gave me and my students an experience of fulfillment and success. So 9 years later, I've tried a lot of stuff. Some of it hasn't worked and some of it has. And I hope that I can share some of the things that I found and help give you a really fantastic experience of teaching and working with young beginners on the violin. This video is the first in a series of 3 videos where I'm going to give you my very best ideas for teaching young beginners. These are the ideas that are going to give you the most results and the most power in your work with your young students, and that I think you're going to enjoy and get a huge mileage out of. We started with the movement building blocks in this video, and in the next video we're going to do some group class activities. Some of these are literacy-based activities that are really going to supercharge the note reading for your students. They're really fun. They're going to give you really enjoyable, creative group classes, and they're going to give your students a foundation in literacy that's going to be amazing for them as they continue to develop on the violin. Then in the third video, I'm going to talk about some really good bow hold ideas for setting up the bow hold and building some fluency and flexibility in the bow arm that's going to give your students a real control and finesse with the bow that for me was a real breakthrough in my teaching. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that you'll leave a comment for me in the area below the video. Let me know your favorite movement building block, and also let me know where your successes and struggles are in teaching young beginners. I will personally read each and every comment, and I hope to respond to some of you and have a great conversation. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please share it on Facebook. I appreciate the shares, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.